When you look at Russell Westbrook's numbers, MVP, triple-double king, and career stats that most players can't touch, you think his legacy is undeniable. So why does one of the most statistically dominant players in NBA history struggle to be universally celebrated? Russell Westbrook's legacy isn't just confusing, it's been made confusing, and a big part of that is the media. For years, they've painted a picture of him as a selfish player, someone who cares more about stats than winning. They've even called him a bad teammate. But has any of his teammates ever said that? To my knowledge, no. In fact, what you hear from players who've been in the locker room with Russ is the opposite. They talk about his leadership, his passion, and his relentless work ethic. Guys like Kevin Durant, Paul George, and even LeBron James have praised him for what he brings to the team.
He needs to be appreciated. I mean, he's not out there trying to be cute with the basketball. He's not out there trying to make friends. I mean, this guy's playing hard every time down.
So when you hear these narratives about him being a problem, remember, they're just narratives. The truth is, Russell Westbrook is one of the most respected players amongst his peers. Let's talk about what makes Russell Westbrook truly special. Not just during his prime, but even today. First, his motor. At his peak, nobody in the league played harder than Russ. And even now, in the later stages of his career, he's still one of the most relentless players on the court. Scoring, rebounding, playmaking, defense. Russ doesn't just do one thing well, he does everything. How many players can you say have dominated all three areas in the way he has? Even as his role has changed on different teams, he's found ways to contribute and still be a force. Another thing that sets him apart is the energy he brings to every arena. Whether it's a home game or on the road, Russ plays with the same intensity. Fans notice that. His highlight plays, those coast-to-coast dunks, those impossible passes, are a reminder of just how electric he still is. Even now, Westbrook's presence alone can shift the momentum of a game. He may not be in his MVP form, but his passion and competitiveness have never wavered. That's why, even today, Russell Westbrook is special. Now, let's address the part of Westbrook's legacy that gets brought up the most, the lack of a championship. In the NBA, rings have become the ultimate measuring stick for greatness. But does that really tell the full story? Here's the thing about Russ. His playing style, fast, aggressive, and high risk, is incredible to watch, but it's not always easy to build a championship team around. His inefficiency as a shooter and a high turnover rate have been well documented. And in today's game, where spacing and efficiency are king, those can be tough challenges to overcome. What makes this narrative even tougher is that Westbrook did have a chance to win a ring in the peak of his talents. With the Oklahoma City Thunder, alongside Kevin Durant and James Harden, the team had the talent and potential to dominate for years. They made the NBA Finals in 2012, but after falling short to the Miami Heat, things started to unravel. Harden was traded, Durant left, and suddenly the championship window was gone. Westbrook's all-in style of play kept OKC competitive, but it wasn't enough to get them over the hump. But let's be real, Russ isn't alone in this. There are plenty of old-time greats who didn't win a championship. Charles Barkley, Allen Iverson, Steve Nash. Does it take away from what they brought to the game? Of course not, and it shouldn't for Russ either. Unfortunately, the lack of a ring will always be a knock against him in the eyes of some fans and analysts, but at the same time, championships are often about circumstances. Teammates, coaching, timing. Westbrook gave everything he had to every team he played for, and that's something that stats and rings don't always capture. The lack of a ring doesn't make Russ any less great. It just makes his legacy a little harder to define in the context of today's NBA. Let's put championship debate aside for a second and focus on why Russell Westbrook deserves more love, because honestly, he's one of the most unique players we've ever seen. First, his effort. It's easy to overlook now, but Westbrook gave 110% every single night. I'm not talking just in the playoffs or marquee games. I'm talking about middle of the season, out of back-to-back, against teams that weren't even in contention. While others were managing their energy or sitting out games, Russ was out there diving for loose balls, sprinting coast to coast, and playing every possession like it was his last. Second, his ability to put on a show. Whether you were a fan of his team or not, You couldn't take your eyes off Westbrook when he was on the court. From the thunderous dumps to the insane passes, he made basketball exciting in a way that very few players can. And then there's his passion. You see it in the way he plays, but also in the way he talks about the game. For Russ, basketball isn't just a job, it's his identity. That kind of love for the game is rare, and it's why so many fans still root for him, even as his role changed in the league. At the end of the day, Westbrook's greatness isn't just about the numbers or accolades. It's about the energy, the passion, and the entertainment he brought to the court. Rings or no rings, that's something every basketball fan should appreciate. So where does this leave us? How do we define the legacy of Russell Westbrook? It's complicated, but maybe it doesn't need to be. The media has spent years trying to fit Russ into a box, calling him a selfish, stat padder, or a bad teammate. But when you strip all that away, what are you left with? A generational talent who played the game with unmatched intensity and gave everything he had every single night. Isn't that what greatness is supposed to look like? Sure, he doesn't have a championship, and yes, his playing style had its flaws, but Russ's legacy isn't about perfection. It's about the passion, the heart, and the fire he brought to the game. It's about being unapologetically himself in an era where everyone is trying to fit in the same mold. Few players have ever had the motor, the mindset, and the sheer will that Russ brought to the court. Love him or hate him, you can't deny his impact. Russell Westbrook is one of the most unique players in NBA history, and while his legacy might be confusing, maybe that's the point. It reflects the impossible standards we hold players to in today's game. Russ might not have a ring, but he has something just as rare. He left it all on the court, every night, and that, more than anything, might be his real legacy.